Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we have the second game of the latest match. White is ahead 2-0 to 5, so 3 away, 5 away. And this is a short video, and the focus here is it's an important point though, because I do find, and I struggle with this myself, and still do sometimes, is missing doubles. Yeah, and being a little too conservative with the doubling cube when you have an advantage. Um, Hopefully, you're not so conservative that you always wait until you have a guaranteed win before you double. But the basic advantage of the doubling cube is to double when you have an advantage because you want the 2 points or more if you gammon, right, with a cube. So, unfortunately, some people do wait too long. A lot of people wait too long. And as a result, their opponent passes the cube. They're happy, right? They get 1 point, but they're really missing out. Okay, and top players, they look for that advantage, not a small advantage, a strong advantage, and then they double because they want their opponent to take the cube and they want to play a game where they have a big advantage, okay, and try to get those extra points, and that's how you win matches. Maybe luck is going with you now, but who knows what's going to happen later. And in English, we have this expression, make hay while the sun shines, right? So this is a good example, this particular game of, missing chances to double. And keep in mind also that if you're aiming to improve your PR, then missing doubles is a really big blow to your PR because it can happen again and again and again, and in some cases it's like today, it's blunders for missing them. So do look out for doubling perhaps earlier than you're used to if you want to raise your game. It's true, you might end up with some mistakes where you've doubled too early, but more often than not, you'll find that you'll be hitting the mark. Okay, or it's not a big mistake in doubling a little early. Of course, there are principles for when to double, and we'll look out for those as well. And I've pointed some of these out in previous videos. But anyways, let's have a look and see how the doubling cube was used. Yeah. So hope you enjoy it. Hope you learn from it. Okay, we're back here. So black or brown, I guess, gets the opening roll and correctly splits. In this case, the brown is behind in the score, and so brown wants a complicated game. If brown were winning, in terms of the match score, then running all the way would be possible. Okay, but you notice here it's a clear mistake for brown to run here. Brown wants to mix things up to get into a struggle, not a straightforward racing game or anything like that. Okay, so this is the right way to open with a 6-2 if you are behind in the score. White rolls a little uncomfortable roll, right? Can't do much with this. Of course, white is not going to play really passively, right? With something like 13-6. It's just you're not going to win games if you're just going to play scared like this, especially since you're not that far ahead in the score, right? And it's rare that you would play so conservatively, right? Your opponent would need to have quite a strong home board with some serious threats for you to play this. So what are the two best moves in this case? Well, white plays what XG considers the best play, which is to, in a balanced approach, to unstack the midpoint and then to split the back checkers. One of the ways that you can get into trouble when you're far ahead is not splitting your back checkers, and that's just getting stuck at the back. So this is a reasonable time to play it. Notice that 2s are duplicated to hit, so that's one reason why 4-3 is played this way. Okay. Interestingly, the alternative is to bring both checkers up, right? As the leader, this is sometimes played when you have the lead in the match score, right? And just try to establish an advanced anchor. White also takes advantage of the fact that 6s are duplicated here, right? So, 6 to point here and 6 to make the advanced anchor on the bar point there. And yeah, black does get some hitting shots, point-making shots, but white hopes that in the exchange they'll be able to anchor or hit back, or so it's a reasonable play as well. Yeah. So in any case, white chooses to play a more balanced approach, which is quite common. Yeah. But still, brown could be considered to have the advantage here. And in fact, brown rolls a nice joker, okay, and hits 2 checkers. Sometimes, in some cases, you want to make 2 points in the home board. But in this case, it's nice to have 2 checkers on the bar, and keep that flexibility for making stronger points, like the 5-point or the 3-point instead of the 2-point. So yeah, brown correctly hits 2 checkers, puts 2 checkers on the bar, and makes the 4-point. So really strong position here for brown. And obviously, brown should be thinking almost immediately double. Looking at the cube, right? Almost no matter what white rolls, but unless white rolls something really good, double 5s or some other double 3s or something like that, then brown has to seriously consider using the cube, especially since he's behind in the score and he needs to try to maximize the points that he gets to get back into the match. Okay, so white has 2 on the bar, and white comes in with 2 checkers. So that's a pretty good roll for white, right? But clearly, brown has the advantage here. And so now it's really up to brown to think: do I have a double or not? Okay, and there's some things to consider here, right? One is clearly there are a number of factors. One is the race, and brown is way ahead in the race. Okay, with white having 3 checkers back. The other thing is obviously brown has a stronger home board, okay, and brown has how many now? So we've got let's see, we've got 2, 5, 7, 8, and kind of 9 in the zone. So there are a reasonable number of kind of attacking checkers, building checkers. It would be better, of course, if brown had an extra checker here, right, on his 8-point. And this is kind of a stack, so not as flexible. Okay, but still there are sufficient checkers in the zone, as we call it, to attack, to build, to make more points, okay, to blitz. And so on the whole, it's quite a reasonable double here, it seems, okay? And again, that factor about match score here is quite important, okay? In that brown is behind the score, so he's going to be more aggressive, especially since there are gammons in this position, right? white has a 24-point anchor, right, on the 1 point. So perhaps not a huge number of gammons, but still, there are decent attacking chances. White's position's not so flexible. He has no forward position. He has no homeboard points, extra homeboard points. And so, yeah, black has a lot of advantages. The one sort of thing that might cause brown to hesitate here is that he's got 4 blots, right? So even if he attacks, let's say with 5-3 and hits on the 3-point, then maybe white can come in and hit one of his other blots and maybe try to get back into the game. But brown would still have a 3-point board and lots of advantages in terms of hitting back and forth and things like that. So it'd be quite a dangerous position for white. So in this position, brown didn't double. Okay, and if we look, okay, at what XG says, then we can see that it is a double take. Okay, a small one, and that's again, I think, because of the number of blots. Brown's position in the outfield is fairly loose. Okay, but there are attacking chances, and if you look, there are according to XG, there's 20% gammons in this position, which if we're playing to 5, a gammon would bring brown to Crawford, right? So that's definitely something to keep in mind, that 20% gammons is nothing to sniff at. So this is worth doubling. Yeah, and it is marginal, and it's not really a big mistake to keep the cube for one more roll. But if it were an even score, then it would probably be a no double. But at this score, brown should go for it. Okay, so not a big mistake, so fine. Okay, but do keep in mind, right, that if you want to improve your PR, you should be looking at doubling earlier. And this is an example of position where you might as well go for it. Okay, and if it's not a double, then it's probably a small mistake to not double this. But at the score, you probably want to maximize your chances to get back into the match. Okay, so let's see what happens. Brown doesn't double. He plays on and he rolls not a great roll, right? A 5-2. And he correctly decides, let's consolidate. I've got an advantage here. Let's button things up, okay? And so he protects a couple blots, but he's still got quite a decent position, okay? And white needs to try to develop his position. White would love to anchor right here next if he can, and that will keep him in the game for a while. But attacking here is a bit much for brown, right? If we look in terms of attacking, you can see it's a huge blunder. Okay, and this is partly because there's not really, this isn't the role that's going to give brown a chance to really complete a blitz or really gain a big advantage, right? What are the chances that white's going to stay out? What are the chances that white's going to gain an advantage by hitting here? Not a lot. So unfortunately, with the roll, brown is better to consolidate. And, again, perhaps wait to see and double next roll. Okay, if white doesn't really perform. Okay, and as you can see, white really throws an air ball here, right? 6-3 is not very useful. Of course, white could consider, tidying up this blot, but this is sort of anti-strategical because white is really far behind in the race, right? If you look, white before the roll is 40 pips behind. And so when you're so far behind, you don't really want to run. You want to try to get a little better anchor than the 24 point. So leaving the checker on the 22 point in order to hopefully anchor at least on the 22 point makes more sense than running in this position, because running and racing is going to be pretty hopeless unless you somehow manage to get double sixes, right? Which is not something you can count on. So anyways, yeah, this is quite a poor roll by white. As you can see, white just sort of plays, tries to start building a position, right, by slotting the bar point and the 5 point. But according to XG's evaluations, you see the 1,000 here on the evaluation, right? So that, it basically says it doesn't matter what white plays, white should pass after brown doubles. Okay. But somewhat amazingly, brown doesn't double this position either. Okay. And on the one hand, I can kind of understand, right? Because it looks like brown doesn't have a huge attacking position here. He's only got one homeboard point. It doesn't look like there's a lot to attack with, but we have to go back to that situation where brown definitely has an advantage here. And a substantial advantage, right? With 3 white checkers back and white not having an advanced anchor and white not having any home board himself, right? He's just got blots on his side of the board instead of points. And so this is a great opportunity for brown to just play on with the game worth 2, because it's also possible white might take this. Okay, even though according to XG it's a pass, and brown would love to play on, right? Because he would like to have 2 points at a minimum if he can win this, and he's a big favorite to win this game. So this is the kind of position that unfortunately I have not doubled in the past, and I see players not doubling. Okay, and you have to take advantage of, even if you don't have an overwhelming position, especially if you don't have an overwhelming position, right? You should double. Now, just to clarify, there are some situations where you don't double because you're too good, right? You think, oh, okay, I can win a gammon. If I double, my opponent will pass, but I have gammon chances. But that's not true here, right? Brown doesn't have so strong a position that he can think about playing on here. He should just cash the game and take the 1 point. And like I said, perhaps there's the possibility that white might take this as well. And I think some players as white would take this because they don't see it. They think it's too early in the game. There's still lots of chances. Brown only has 2 homeboard points. Okay, but the other point is the race. The race is just, when you think about taking a cube, you want to have a combination of possibilities of winning a game, and racing has to be like, at least if, obviously you're usually behind in the race, but not so far behind in the race that racing equity is almost 0, right? Okay, and here it's just way too far behind. White really shouldn't take this. But I can understand why some might be tempted. Mm-hmm. So all the more reason to double. Yeah. Okay, so in this case, let's have a look And according to XG, right, if we look, we can see that, how big a mistake is it? Okay, it's a blunder. Okay, 123, right? To not double this. And as I mentioned, it's a pass for white. It's close. It's close. Yeah, but white, should give this up, especially because of the big racing lead for brown and the lack of development on white's side of the board. Okay, it's going to be hard for white to turn this around and win it. But in any case, brown really needs to double this, and he missed it. Okay. So he rolls a 6-3 and makes a blunder. Okay, and decides to play kind of conservatively, not risking anything, and just puts an extra builder on the 4-point. And instead, as you can see, XG says you should make the 5-point. Okay, and this is actually, you don't like to leave a blot on the 8-point, but white's forward position is not strong. So even if white somehow managed to hit and cover, there's still lots of play and return shots and things like that, right? And having the 6, 5, and 4 points is quite a strong position, as you can imagine. And there's no guarantee that white would hit. So, yeah, might as well take the risk while you have these advantages and while white is undeveloped. The alternative, which is close, is just to clear the rearmost point. You have to do it at some point. And yes, you leave 2 blots, but again, white's position is pretty weak on his side of the board, so it's worth the risk. And you have some really nice builders for the 5-point or brown's bar point. And that also is a viable option. But just playing very safe with 13-4 is, there's no need to play safe in this position, right? This is another common mistake that I see sort of intermediate players make, is not being able to distinguish when to play safe and when to take not an inordinate risk, but to take some risks, right? And leave some blots. When your opponent has a weak home board, blots in his home board or undeveloped home board, you shouldn't worry too much about being hit, okay? And in return, you get strong flexibility and you advance your sort of strategic plan of bringing home this game, right? In terms of you're far ahead in the race, so you've got to break those rearmost points, for example, yeah? And so that's why that makes sense. Or you can afford to leave a blot and just build that fantastic home board, okay? And this, again, can lead to strong threats for brown. So consider that as well, right? Is keep in mind that before you make a move, ask yourself, am I playing too safe? Do I really need to be so cautious about being hit? Look at your opponent's home board. Consider, how risky it actually is if you get hit. Do you have play if you get hit? And in some cases, yeah, you do. And so it's worth the risk. Okay. Right. So white, thanks to brown's missing the cube, white has a kind of a free roll here, right? And you never know what white could roll to bring himself back into the game. He could roll double 6s. He could roll double 2s would be nice. Double 4s would be fantastic, right? He ends up rolling double 5s, which again is not ideal. Because it doesn't do anything with the back checkers mostly. But it does allow him to sort of develop his home board. And he misses this chance. I'm not exactly sure why I didn't actually just make the 2 points and sort of get an instant 3-point home board. Perhaps I felt that I didn't want to commit to, making the 3-point immediately, but it does make sense, to just try to strengthen that home board and maybe try to scare Brown off a cube again. But yeah, it's not a huge error, but just in this case, the position is such that you might as well have made points in your home board. Okay. But 5-5 does, help with the race somewhat. White is still fairly behind, right? After 20 pips, he's still kind of like he's cut the Brown's racing lead in half, but he's still 20 pips behind, right? So it's not going to help that much. And the key problem is that his back checkers are still back there and not doing anything. Okay, and this is, again, a cube that Brown misses, okay? Look at White's position. It's true that the race is a little closer, but White's position is not ideal, right? And, he's made the 1 point. He's got blots. He's got 3 blots in the vicinity of his home board. He doesn't have an advanced anchor. So the position is still not good. And he's still far behind in the race. And Brown has some threats. Now he does have that extra builder, even though, it was a mistake. He does have that extra builder here. So, he has more chances of pointing on White here and preventing him from making that anchor. It's a cube again. And as you can see, it's a similar blunder for Brown not to double this. Okay, double fives, perhaps Brown thought, oh, okay, well, White is racing and is not that far behind anymore. But no, the race is still well in hand, and Brown still has threats, and Brown is still behind in the match score. So let's take advantage of this and try to get 2 points. Because again, there's still the possibility that even though it's a pass, and in this case it's a bigger pass for White. It was a marginal pass last time, but now it's a much bigger pass. But there's still some players who would take if they were White in this position. Okay, because Brown's threats don't seem all that great, but in fact, White has to assess this in terms of his own position as well, right? Which is not ideal. The problem is, even if he can make an anchor, he can't sit on it very long because the double fives have taken away his timing. So yeah, this position doesn't look very good for White. So Brown should just double him out and take the point, and maybe White might take it. Yeah. Okay, so Brown misses a cube again, but he does have a decent roll. Okay, he rolls 3-1, and correctly points on the 3-point, right? Okay, yeah, making the 5 before was good, but here, it's great to put White on the bar at this point, right? And notice that one of the things to look out for, it's not a big theme here, is that if you do make the 5-point, okay, then this checker becomes not as useful, right? And there are some situations where you might make in certain attacking positions, you make the 4-point instead of the 5-point because you have checkers here or a checker here, and that makes it useful, right, for making that point later. Whereas if the 5-point is made already, then this is just a spare checker almost. You might make the bar point with it, but just keep that in mind. I'll try to point that out in the future if we see it. Okay, so Brown makes the 3-point. And White comes in, right? Okay, let me get rid of that annotation. Okay, so white comes in and makes a homeboard point. Okay, and now, as you can see, brown doubles. Brown is happy now with his position. He feels he has a strong enough position that he can double. But kind of unfortunately for him, white correctly recognizes that it's a pass. Okay, it's a huge pass, as you can see down here, right? Massive pass. Okay, and in fact, you can see that brown is not that far away from being too good at this point. Okay, and this is partly because of white's timing is not ideal. And as I mentioned, white can't afford to hang back and play some kind of holding game or back game just because he'll run out of time. But anyways, I think most players, right, would pass this as white. So, but yeah, brown should double this. It's not a play on situation. There's still the open 5 point and white's position might still come together in his home board. He looks like he could make the 5 point next, and then there might be some problems. And notice brown's position is a bit stripped, right? So we have 3 points without any spares on them, and so some issues might arise if brown is not too careful. But it's still a pass at this point. So brown correctly doubles white out. Okay, but this is what I warned about at the in the introduction. Brown gets a point. They're quite happy. Yay! I won a point. But brown had the chance to play on in this kind of position with the cube on 2. And, there's still some gammon chances, okay? Notice the gammon rate here, okay, has gone up. Sorry, wrong one. Has gone up to 23.5%. So brown should be happy to play on in this position, okay, and try to get 2 points, if not 4 points. But he only got 1. And let's see, he had some nice rolls, white had some poor rolls, and let's see if that trend continues in the match, because you have to take advantage of your good luck by trying to maximize your profits, so to speak, maximize your points when you are getting that good luck. Okay, so I hope you can take that lesson to heart and look to double earlier than perhaps you feel comfortable with sometimes. At least consider it and think about it, because that's one thing that does happen, right? Is some intermediate players, they just keep on rolling and they don't stop to at least consider the cube, and that's a really big mistake. When you have the advantage, you should be stopping before each roll, and even if it's a small advantage, just stopping and thinking, do I have enough for a cube here? What would my opponent do if I cubed? Is there a possibility he might pass? If there is that possibility, then there's the possibility it might be a double, right? And again, try to maximize your points while things are going well for you. Okay, thanks. And since this is a shorter game, I'll try to create another video this week, especially since it's Chinese New Year break holiday over here in Hong Kong. And yeah, I hope this was helpful and hope you've learned from it. Thanks very much.